They didn't mention that I stood fifth from the bottom of my class at the Naval Academy.
Our economic fundamentals are strong.
The fundamentals of our economy are strong.
Fundamentals of our economy are strong. I mentioned some of them before. Job creation is strong. Real after-tax wages are on the rise.
Warren Buffett, one of the world's richest men, summed up the economic crisis this way on CNBC.
It's fallen off a cliff.
The fundamentals of our economy are strong.
And not only has the economy slowed down a lot, people have really changed their behavior like nothing I've ever seen.
In a wide-ranging interview Monday on the cable network, Buffett predicted higher unemployment and inflation in 2009 because of the economic crisis.
The fundamentals of our economy are very strong. The fundamentals of our economy are strong.
I've never seen the consumer, or the Americans just generally, more fearful than this, and they're also confused.
Buffett blamed partisan bickering on Capitol Hill for adding to the confusion. The latest example of that was on ABC's This Week, as Republican Senator Richard Shelby and Democratic Senator Evan Bayh debated the merits of allowing major U.S. banks to fail.
Close them down. Get them out of business. If they're dead, they ought to be buried.
If they were to go down, the problem is it's not just them. They take, it's called, collateral damage.
Although he's optimistic about long-term prospects, Buffett urged Republican and Democratic leaders to deliver a consistent message and support President Barack Obama's efforts to fight what he calls an economic war. Meanwhile, a new report by the World Bank says the global economy continues to shrink.
Interestingly enough, the global economy is strong. Unemployment is low.
Mr. Chairman, Senators, I appreciate the opportunity to express a few views on the estate tax. I'll limit my remarks to 3 points. The first relates to the intellectual dishonesty employed by those who use the phrase death tax. This term is clever, it is Orwellian, and it is, if you'll pardon the expression, dead wrong. More than 2.4 million Americans will die this year. About 12,000 of them will leave an estate that will be taxed when it goes down to, when the exemption goes to 3 million, as Senator Grassley mentioned. It'll be 9,600 estimated, and it's been 19,000 when the exemption was higher. That means that 99.5% of estates will be tax-free. You would have to attend 200 funerals to be at one at which the decedent's estate owed a tax. Indeed, far more people who die receive a large tax benefit. I don't think that's generally understood, namely a stepped-up basis on appreciated assets. If people insist on renaming the estate tax, it would be more appropriately labeled the death present. The second point I would like to make is that in a country that prides itself on equality of opportunity, it is becoming anything but that as the gap between the super-rich and the middle class widens in dramatic fashion.
Guys in the world, Warren Buffett feels he pays too little by percentage. This interesting campaign of his was unveiled in a recent conversation with Tom Brokaw, who is here with us in the studio with more on this. This is fascinating.
Brian, it is well known that Warren Buffett is a contrary billionaire. Unlike most of his fellow billionaires, he believes that they should be paying a higher tax rate. And to prove his point, he decided to compare what he pays as a tax rate with what the people who work for him pay. Is this what you had in mind when you were 17, Warren?
Well, in a very, very, very general way.
It is no secret that Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha and the world's third richest man, doesn't have a great deal in common with his fellow billionaires. Here you are hitting against Bob Gibson.
Right.
But amidst the sports memorabilia and the modest office that is the nerve center of his empire, Buffett sees a fundamental injustice that he says touches all Americans.
The taxation system has tilted toward the rich and away from the middle class in the last 10 years. It's dramatic, and I don't think it's appreciated. And I think it should be addressed.
You've gone very public with this.
Right.
You've talked about in your own office, for example, you pay a much lower tax rate with all of your wealth than, say, a receptionist does.
That's exactly right, Tom. And I think the only way to do it is with specifics. And in our office, 15 people cooperated in a survey out of 18. I didn't make anybody do it. And my total taxes paid, payroll taxes plus income tax, mine came to 17.7%. The average for the office was 32.9%. There wasn't anybody in the office, from the receptionist on up, that paid as low a tax rate. And I have no tax planning. I don't have an accountant. I don't have tax shelters. I just follow what the U.S. Congress tells me to do.
Buffett is particularly critical of the lower tax rates paid by hedge fund managers who reap millions of dollars from the investments made by others.
I do know that the hedge fund operators spent a record amount lobbying in recent months, so they give money to the political campaigns, and who represents the cleaning lady?
Even some of Buffett's own employees had no idea what kind of a rate they were paying for taxes until he told them. You know, at the end of this year, you're going to pay a higher tax rate, percentage of your income, than this guy will.
Yes. I have learned that since I started.
He'll have a little more left over than you will at the end of the year, probably.
It's not right.
So here's your first tax return.
Yeah, that was when I was 13.
Right.
I owed $7.
Buffett doesn't hold out much hope that Congress will pass his favorite idea, a progressive consumption tax. But that does not mean he's going to stop speaking out. After all, his employees now are counting on him.
If you could rewrite the rules, what would you do? I'd first ask Warren how he would rewrite them.
And to further prove his point, Buffett has challenged, he's offered $1 million to charity to any of the Forbes 400 richest people who can show that on average they pay a higher tax rate than their secretaries pay. But so far, Brian, he's had no takers.